I did shave my beard, yes.
It is recording, and today is a special day because we have.
Everyone on this podcast is over 6 feet tall, for starters.
That is true. We have Dr. Nathan Andersen, who happens to also be my brother. And Nate, hello. Welcome to the Lincoln Stin Lincoln show. That's our name. How do you feel about that name, Nate?
That's a great name. I think that's.
I feel like it is.
I think that should be the official designation.
I feel so too. But today it's the Stin Lincoln Nate Lincoln Stin show. Because today
I like Lincoln's fun background.
That's the Columbia River. It's the largest river outside of the Amazon that runs south-north, essentially. And it divides Washington State, which you see there, in Oregon, where I live in Portland. And it was during the fires. And you also remember Hipstamatic, when that was a thing before Instagram had filters for free.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah,
Can I just say why I'm so excited?
Than this. It's just my little window.
Leveler blinds are very sexy.
Yeah,
they
I thought those were a picture, Nate. Aren't those a photo behind you? This is my photo of like a mattress pad on the wall behind me.
Nice.
With a special Instagram-worthy picture.
Focused, disciplined, passionate.
Can I just say something for the listeners right now?
Yeah. Yes, you may go.
I feel really freaked out because I have this app on this phone that tells me that I look at the thing I pick it up 400 times a day and I look at it for 8 hours and 12 minutes a day. And then all of a sudden coronavirus hits and it's week 7 and I just got off 2 hours of Zoom calls for work. Now I'm Zooming on a podcast. Then I'm going to look at my email on a screen. I'm not going to have a face-to-face interaction with anybody. Then it's going to be 6 o'clock. I'm going to try not to drink wine. Then I'm going to Netflix for 2 hours with my husband. And I have this conflict of like, wait, am I supposed to be managing my screen time and setting an example for my 11-year-old who doesn't have a phone yet because she's going to be the last kid ever to get a phone when she's 15?
Oh, stop showing off.
Well, I'm just saying, once Pandora's box is open, I open a lot of other Pandora boxes, including 6 seasons of Glee, which was way too early for a 7-year-old. Okay.
Way too early.
It's snarky humor, mean-spirited.
You have to be 40 to watch
topic.
Glee. It's everything wrong and right in the world. Can you, so here, first of all, super shallow comment. Lincoln, your head keeps changing shapes really strangely. Okay. Nate, have you noticed that?
Yes, and occasionally his chair shows up. Sometimes
it's magic.
Floating. There it is.
Fine. I mean, it's much, but I always want you to start like that. There it is. It's a love hat. It's getting serious. Nate, this is why we invited you. Lincoln has this problem. We all do. If you are on coronation right now, you have this problem where you are completely consuming way too much video time, and you're also turning like vain in a weird way because you're used to seeing yourself on a screen. Like I've had to train myself to stop fixing my hair when I see my reflection. So there's that interaction, which I think is fascinating to a philosopher such as yourself, who's well-renowned and has written and published books. Nate is world-renowned.
Nobody knows.
He's writing a book. But the point of it is that you're writing a book on the thing about my internal conflict of like, now I can't feel guilty about screen time.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've been struggling with it for years already. And so like,
and then just add this to the mix and everyone's totally
what's
slowly...
it doing? We're a species that evolved interact. Like you get in with 6 feet of another human being, your cells feel electricity from their electrical impulses. Like your mitochondria are connected. That's why we feel empathy. When a whole group of people is doing the same thing at the same time, it's not the Holy Ghost, in my opinion. It's the fact that we're unifying and our cells are talking to each other in a group. It's a survival mechanism that we evolved to have. And so now we're not having face-to-face interactions. And I don't know what to tell my 11-year-old, what the future of the world is going to look like. We've evolved for millions of years as interacting face-to-face people. And now we have this computer and this thing, and I'm freaked out.
So Nate, we need you to help us as human beings and as a species. We'd like you to save the world right now. First of all, you're uniquely qualified to speak on this topic. Go.
Yeah, my challenge is that I am, I'm of the mindset that philosophy doesn't change the world; it analyzes it. Marx criticized Hegel for analyzing the world and not changing it. But I think that's what we're qualified to do. I think that we're qualified to sort of look at what changes have happened. But I mean, Lincoln's point is great, that we do identify ourselves in relation to each other, right? This is the theme of, the theme that Hegel talked about as recognition, right? That I can't be myself by myself. That to be a self is essentially to see others seeing you as a self.
Right.
And so it's only in connection with others, insofar as other people interact with us and acknowledge us, because there's something about ourselves we can't ever see, right? We can't ever see ourselves as we're seen. And we can only do that through other people. So we need other people to mirror us. We need other people to recognize or identify us. But the challenge is that, a Zoom meeting doesn't quite do that. I mean, we've, I don't know if we should say it's evolution, or, I mean, it's rooted in that, but it's culture after that,
Right.
that we've developed over time a capacity for, discerning how other people are registering our presence, and that capacity to discern how others are registering our presence is essential to how we think about ourselves, essential to how we feel on an ongoing basis, and I think that Zoom doesn't quite cut it, right? I mean, I think I just read an article about this in the context of thinking about the classroom, the Zoom classroom or the Google Meet classroom. All of my classes have moved to Google Meetings, and it really is a harder thing to teach that way, because there's something about being in the presence with the students in the classroom where you can sort of register how what you're saying is being taken up, and so
Right.
you can respond to that. You can change what you're going to say. I mean, I more or less, I might say a thing and then notice nobody got the point that I just made. That just blew over every single one, and so then I'm going to say it again in a different way. Maybe I'm going to ask for an example, or I'm going to try to get them to think about something, or talk about a particular passage, but I'm going to modify what I'm saying to how they are taking up what I'm saying. And it's really hard to do in Zoom. Like right now, I'm looking at my screen. I see, this little window at the top of Stin and Lincoln. Maybe it's the way that this is set up, where it's going to.
Well, you could go to gallery view and see us
you can
even
go to
larger.
gallery view. I'm not as savvy in oh, there it is. That makes it a little.
So
bit.
you're welcome for getting to see our faces even larger.
You just taught me about how to use this. I'm a Google Meet person, so and that's.
But it is strange, because I think that's a great point. Is that we're in this context, we're kind of restricted to seeing. There's no way that I can have a Zoom meeting with you without seeing myself. And that's a huge distraction too, because I'll be talking, but it's like 1/3 of my brain is like, oh, I should fix my bangs, or, oh, I wish I could get Botox on my neck. Like there's all sorts of this inner dialogue happening at the same time that I'm so aware of my persona that I can't even connect as well, right? Is that kind of, I don't know. That's another thing that I've noticed.
That's right. I mean, I think that plays into it, that you are seeing yourself, and you've got to kind of assess to see if you're being seen. You've got to see your image that way, which is not something we do normally. We don't see ourselves as we're talking to other people. But I mean, I think the part of the issue. I mean, I think it's worth going back and thinking about the beginnings of the internet. I mean, one of the really cool things, when we were, I don't know, 18 or 20, when the internet was just coming out, maybe in CompuServe or something like that. The exciting thing about it was that you didn't have to be yourself online, right? You could kind of experiment with different kinds of identities, and your face didn't appear online, your image didn't appear online, so you could sort of use your words to, capture a kind of identity, to explore aspects of your personality that you wouldn't feel comfortable exploring in person around other people. But now everything is out there online, and I think, people who are really excited about the early potential of the internet started to get frustrated about 5 or 10 years ago, partly as a result of the massive collection of data on the part of these social media platforms, targeting us, trying to get us. I mean, like Lincoln was saying, you spend 8 hours online, and maybe it's a necessity right now, but a lot of that is that those platforms are working very hard to keep you online, right? To make sure that you feel the necessity of staying online. So
how's that
kind of,
affecting us, and why should we fight against it?
Yeah, well, I think one way I like to think about it, and a number of people are thinking about it this way, is in terms of your capacity for paying attention, your capacity for investing your mental energy into different kinds of things, is arguably one of the most important things about you. It's arguably the thing that makes you you, is what you invest your emotional and cognitive energy into. And I think the danger is that these platforms are trying to keep you paying attention to things that you wouldn't naturally want to pay attention to.
Right.
It's a natural thing to, when you've been working really hard on something, to just zone out, right? So television did that. Before the internet, you could just, you have work a hard, long day. You just want to watch a movie. You just want to watch TV for a little while. And what that does is it just kind of, decompresses your energy. It means you don't have to be active. You don't have to be paying attention to something. But now, that becomes the dominant mode, right? I mean, I find myself, I'll be working on a project and I'll think to myself, oh, I should just look that up really quickly. I should just see what that book is. I'll be reading a book and somebody will reference in a footnote a book, and I'll think, oh, that'd be interesting to see what that is. So I'll look it up online, think that's going to take me a minute. But while I'm looking it up online, I'm going to check my email, and then I might check Facebook, and then I might, look it up, be on Amazon and find 8 other recommendations. And before I know it, I've spent a couple hours, literally, just sort of going down this rabbit hole.
And maybe you bought soda on Amazon while you were there.
Yeah, I probably bought something. I probably bought that book, which I probably could have just gone to the library. But
oh gosh, this is such a fascinating. Yes, that's so true, because it caters, it creates the ADD. I remember in high school, there was an argument that Sesame Street was keeping our kids from being able to focus, because everything had to be consolidated into 2 to 3 minute segments in order to keep a young child engaged. And that was a big problem. And now, I mean, it doesn't matter what line of life you're in. Once you get on the phone, it's so perfectly designed to have a little ding or a little doot or a little something, and we can get in rabbit holes. And there's also an immediacy too.
Right.
When someone's texting you, if they can see that you've opened it or read it, there's this feeling of, well, I can't diss them, or what is it Lucy always says, I can't leave them ghosted, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there's that kind of, well, I gotta show up for all these people that have access to me now.
There's a theorist, I can't remember his name. He wrote a book called Sadness by Design, and argued that a lot of these mechanisms built into these social media platforms, they have the impact of creating in us a kind of longing that can never be fulfilled. He talks about a mechanism in WhatsApp. I don't know if you guys used WhatsApp, but that's the best thing to use, especially if you go to Europe or something like that, international, to contact with people. And it's even more, their design of that is even weirder than some of the others. You know, on Facebook, you get those little red notifications, and you've got to clean them up by checking to see what the thing was. But on WhatsApp, if somebody got your text and they saw it, you see these little 2 gray check marks that say they saw it, it was received by them, but they didn't respond. And so you're aware that they got it, they didn't receive, and so you're bugged. You know, you're just like,
super
oh.
bugged.
Yeah,
You keep checking to see,
why
did they
didn't
see
they
it?
respond? Yeah, I
So
mean,
true.
Stin texted me this morning and I didn't respond. I don't know if she saw that I saw what she wrote, but I was like, oh, I've got stuff going on. I don't know if I want to respond to her. But you know, it bugs people, and so you know the very natural tendencies we have, which are, I want to know that you see me the way that I think you see me. Right? That's the sort of core of recognition. I see that you see me in a certain way, and you see that I see you in a certain way. And if we kind of, if things are going well, we feel like there's a resonance there. We feel like that's what Hegel calls recognition. We feel like I see you in the way that you would want me to see you, and you see me in the way that I would want you to see me, and that, but this, it's all of those kind of mechanisms, all those sort of conscious registers are upset by these kinds of mechanisms. You're not sure what to think about how the other sees you. You know, just think about sending a letter. You know, I used to send a letter to my friend Evan Hill. You know, we'd send each other letters all the time when I was in high school and after high school. And, you know, it was kind of fun to, you know, not know when the letter was going to return. You just, and it wasn't like, oh, he's, you know, this guy doesn't care about me anymore. He's not my friend anymore. That's why he's not sending me a response. It's just, letters take a long time, and so you knew that. And so it was always a surprise and a gift when it came back. But now with you know, you message somebody and they don't respond right away, then it feels like they don't care about you. There's not, you know, they're not, there's a certain kind, it changes how we respond to it. It changes how we feel about it. And it does, I think, produce in us a kind of melancholy, as this theorist was talking about. You get a real buzz when you think, oh, I posted this thing and somebody I think is interesting responded to it. Yes. And that's great. And so you check on that, you kind of go, oh, that's, yeah, this person thinks I'm important or interesting and worth responding to. But then, you know, you post something that you thought was interesting, and maybe it was meant for somebody to see, and nobody responds, and you don't know what that is. Maybe it's the Facebook feed just didn't present it to them when they were on. So it could have had to do with the algorithm, but you can't know what it was that determined why they didn't respond.
My question is, after all your research, is there something that I mean, should I be doing something to improve my mental health?
Yeah, because it feels like MSG.
Habits?
Like it's what we've created is like this digital MSG that has like this addictive quality, and it's not really serving us.
And now I need it. Now
having
I need
our
it to
brains.
survive.
And well, now we need it.
And you don't just need it. I mean, there's the two sides of a kind of addiction, in the sense of you have a desire for a certain thing that needs to be fulfilled in a certain way. You know, there's the dopamine rush that you get when you get a response from somebody, or you get a ding on your phone or something, and you think, oh, it could be something cool. You know, somebody cool could be saying something fun that's going to take me out of my boredom of scrolling through dumb stuff all this time. But so there's that kind of addictive side, but then there's also the fact that, you know, these platforms have become so embedded in our lives that we can't really do without them. And especially right now in the age of the coronavirus, we all need them. So you can't really get off them. I think I think of it, and I think a number of people think about it this way, is that, I mean, there are obviously certain kind of personal things you can do. And it's similar to the kind of response you might do to climate change. You know, you're going to buy, I don't know, farm range chicken, free range chicken, and maybe you're gonna, or maybe you're not going to buy chicken at all. You know, you're going to go vegan because you are worried about the the impact on the planet of certain decisions you might make. But no matter how much you change your life, it's going to make nil difference in the larger scheme of things. Right? So it might make you feel a little bit better, and it might actually improve the quality of your life in a certain ways because you feel better about yourself and maybe you're eating healthier food. But it's not going to change the larger picture. I mean, the larger picture is going to be, it requires people coming together and saying, we're not going to allow this. We're not going to tolerate these kinds of things, these kinds of things that are destroying the planet. I shouldn't have to choose between chicken that's going to destroy the planet and it's going to, make lots of chickens suffer, and chicken that's not going to destroy the planet. That shouldn't be an option. People shouldn't be allowed to sell chicken that destroys the planet and that that is harmful or, produces a lot of suffering. And I think similarly, we need to say the same thing about, the internet and its impacts. I mean, I think, the reality is that these platforms, Facebook, Twitter, have all been designed by people who, they're not thinking about the larger social implications of them. They're thinking about how can we do a thing that people are going to want to do, create a thing that people are going to want to use, and we can make money from it. That's what they're thinking. And that's not an evil way to think, but it does lead to a lot of problems when everybody has had their way of relating to people in the world changed as a result of these platforms.
And it helps if I'm aware of that. It helps if I'm aware of that intention, and then if I have a plan, like I think a lot of people just don't have a plan of how to interact with it. Like they're not conscious that this is designed. So now, like it's like screens on crack, like everything's on steroids because of the coronavirus lockdown. It's 7 or 8 weeks in, soon to be, and our whole link to the outside world, outside of this house, is screens and technology. So the conflict comes is that I was already trying to reduce screen time, right? I'm trying to be present with my family, and now I can't be present with them because they're in another house, like my in-laws are in another house. So like the conversation in one's head is like, well, now how am I supposed to feel? Not guilty because I need it and because it's the link to the outside world, or am I still supposed to be limiting for my mental health? Is it going to make me happier?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think at some level, I think you can do some things, and I think you should feel, I think in the context of the coronavirus, you should feel not guilty about using things that you need. But you should, plan into your day time to go take a walk or something like that if you can. I mean, if you're in a place where you can go outside or take a walk or get some exercise, all those kinds of things, just put your phone down for a few hours so that you can refresh. But I think broader after the coronavirus, I think the danger is, of course, that we become so used to using it this much that it creates in us habits that are going to be hard to break. And, I think there are a lot of things people have done, notably a lot of Silicon Valley executives are they have all these ways that they go take retreats. They put their phone down, they spend $10,000. They go to some really nice park and they have yoga instructors and people teaching them meditation, and
no, you're right. The kids are doing it.
Their phone won't let them get it back, and they're paying.
The kids are doing it. The kids are paying $3,000 for 5 nights, and I'm talking like digital generation, post millennial, where I think there's a tipping point happening, and that generation may be growing up. Say they get to their 30s, they're like, enough. Like enough is enough, and I will.
I think that's what we're going to see. I think that is what we're going to see, because even the teenagers, like we use it, but there is an awareness now that Lucy
Right.
will always say, I hate TikTok. She's taken it off her phone like 37 times.
Yeah.
And there's also like
Putting it
this,
back.
but she gets it back on, right? Because somebody will send her something and she gets all excited.
Yeah,
And
sure.
she is aware of how much it's, so I was kind of thinking as we were discussing, you know, last episode we talked about how we buffer, how we use things to overcome loneliness. And think about how much our digital devices, anything technological or even Netflix, can be a tool to help us not feel lonely, help us not feel any of the negative emotions that come along with being a human and that are exacerbated during this time. And again, you approach all of that stuff, whether it's drinking or excessive. That's the thing, is the phone coming in the bathroom with you all the time? Is it sitting next to the shower so you don't miss anything? Like, there are things that you're going to begin. It doesn't take you, Nate, a philosophy professor, to know that you are tied into your digital devices too much, and that it is that when you don't have them, you feel naked and you feel lonely,
Right.
and you feel horrible, and you can't wait to get it back. And that's when, what I would say from my professional training would be, you've got to have a plan. You've got to have a plan. And it's, I'm going to use my digital devices from this time to this time.
I guess my question is,
And
if I
here's
don't
my
take the phone
objective,
in,
and you have a plan, because that's what I make my kids do, is they
Right.
have to check out their phone. And I say, what are you doing? Who are you contacting? What class are you doing? And then they turn it back in. And that's what they have to turn it in at night. At night,
what's
they
the
have
benefit?
2 hours at night.
I guess there are probably a lot of people saying, like, so why shouldn't I take my phone in for my morning number 2? Like,
Well,
I can't imagine,
yeah.
like, when's the last time you went
If
poop
it's in your
without
plan.
phone?
If
You
it's in your
might.
plan.
I mean, I do think that we need to distinguish, though, between uses of your phone that are, you know, enhancing broadly your freedom, and those that are restricting your freedom, you know. So you can think about, I mean, if you're, you know, I review my German vocabulary every day on my phone, and it's a thing I sort of have to force myself to do, because I don't, you know, it's not a thing that draws me in, but I do it, and it's a nice way to do it, you know. I mean, it's much better than having to lug around a card catalog of 3,000 cards or something like that. So I'll review certain cards at a certain interval every single day, and that is, I think of that as a freedom enhancing activity. That is, it makes me capable of doing things that I want to do. But, you know, if I scroll through Twitter, probably I'm not freedom enhancing in that way. And I mean, I do think the thing about the bathroom is, I mean, I think one thing that we don't have, and that that the phone is causing problems with, is we don't learn to be bored. We don't learn to just sort of be there with yourself, with your thoughts, just kind of sorting through them and going through the negative stuff, going through the positive stuff, and you know, having space for insight, you know, having space for suddenly thinking, oh, that, you know, I think if you have a project that you're working on, if you have something that you're thinking about, and it just sort of, you know, you are bored, you're going to think about it. You're going to have ideas come up. And if you're fiddling on your phone every chance you get, every time you've got downtime, you're not going to have those thoughts.
I like that. So that, again, and in that context, we could even see this is a training exercise, that when we have the discipline, when we have our phone, if we went on our phone for a specific purpose, to practice the German, to do whatever, there are things we can do. We can minimize the pop-ups, but even more so, that can be a training zone even for enhancing our ability to focus. If in the heat of the moment, let's say, we can, and that in and of itself can be the exercise, possibly. It's a challenge, though. It is a challenge. So you're saying it's worth it. Like, what's the premise of your book? Where are you going to end?
There is no book yet. It's a
there's a book. It's in your head
on a horizon. Yeah, I mean, I think broadly, I mean, I really, mostly it's an attempt. I think it's probably going to be called being online, existing in the age of the internet, and it's going to be a kind of new existentialist kind of approach. But broadly, I want to think about how our sense of ourself has changed, how our relationship to the world has changed, and how our relationships with each other have changed. So I'm going to organize it around what I take to be the three basic certainties, the three basic things that we can know no matter what, right? There are all kinds of things that we can be skeptical about, that we can doubt, but there are three basic obvious certainties. One was the one that Descartes announced, which is I exist, right? I am. And then the second one is there is, I'm not alone in the world. There is a world. There's a reality out there, and it's got determinate features that they're not just up to me. I have to adapt myself to a reality that exists independently of me, and we can know about that. We can come to learn about it through various different methods. So the first one is I am. The second one, there is. The third is we are. Right? That I am not alone in the world. I exist with other people, and the most important things are the things that we come together to do. So I want to think about how those three basic ideas, the self, the world, and society, have been transformed in various ways by the internet, and how we can, what are some of the positive aspects of those transformations, and what are some of the dangerous aspects of those transformations, and how can we resist them? That's the broad outline of the book in my mind. But I think that the thing about, the most important thing is who we are together, how we are together. I think something like, having interactions with people, even uncomfortable interactions with people, is probably a good thing. That, and if it happens on Zoom, it's not going to be perfect. It's not, it's going to be lacking some of the features of face-to-face in reality encounter, but it's still going to have some of the features, which is that you're going to encounter people who are going to challenge your ideas, are going to get you to talk about things that you hadn't thought about. They're going to, sort of push you in various ways to look outside of yourself. And so having, like this kind of thing that we're doing right now is probably a good thing. And it's better than, if I was sitting on Facebook alone, running through my tweet, my feed. I think I think that's a good thing. I think being social online, not just being social, but having conversations online.
Maybe it's just about maybe what we have always done. I used to read a lot of Darwin, and he said, it stuck with me because the success of any species doesn't have to do with its strength, which you would assume, of course, or its intelligence, which you would also assume, but really about its adaptability. Right. And I think that all species adapt, and that humans are adapting to, we've always adapted. And so it's really about, for me, I think that my conclusion after listening to you is like a conscious adaptation. We're in a new, coronavirus has kicked it into high gear. And so it's at top of mind for me more than ever. So in having grown up without the internet, and then as a late teenager and in college, the internet happened, and now to where we are today, we've advanced so much. And so this is such a prevalent part of our lives. And then seeing it through the eyes of my 11-year-old and the future world that she's growing up into, it's all swirling around in my head. And I think I was looking for some sort of advice of how to approach it. And I think that it's not really about rules about approaching it. It's how to healthily adapt to it.
Yeah.
Right. Because anytime there's an adaptation, you have to find your new normal that's going to be acceptable and healthy for you.
Yeah. I think the key is to recognize that the internet and the digitally networked devices that we carry around in our pockets and on our wrists are tools, right? And tools have certain uses that certain things that they allow us to do, but they also prevent us from doing certain things, or they resist certain kinds of things. And so if you think in terms of what people in media theory call affordances, these tools allow us to do certain things, but they constrain other kinds of things. If you think these are tools, they allow us to, in the context of the coronavirus, they allow us to have these conversations that we couldn't have otherwise. And they also, allow us, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation even if there was no coronavirus. We'd have to fly to some common location. So they allow us to have those kinds of conversations. They allow us to do a lot of things. And a lot of things that we would want to do if we thought about them. But they also sort of push us to do lots of things that are probably not good for us, and encourage us to develop certain habits that are probably we're not going to feel very comfortable with. And so we should come together to try to resist those things.
Agreed.
Nate, how do you get so much done? You write books and you teach classes. And you're doing things right. Like, what is your secret to success? Or what would be your advice, not just on this, but as someone that can write a book, right? Like, how many of us have all secretly kind of wanted to write a book?
Yeah.
But 90%, 99% of the people don't ever write the book. How do you get to a point where you write a book?
Well,
do you structure your day?
There's two ways to write a book. One is to become monomaniacal, that is to become totally, to ignore everything else in your life, and just focus on the one thing, and pretend that no other obligations exist. And I've done that. There have been times that's probably not the most healthy thing for relationships and for jobs and other kinds of things. I think, I think that beyond that, I think you have to have certain habits that you just inculcate, certain things that you just do every day. Like my German, I do it every day, even when I don't want to. It's just a rule. I mean, my favorite philosopher, or my second favorite philosopher, is Immanuel Kant. And he basically says to really be free is to set yourself a rule, right? So the way that you're free, it's not just like saying, I'm going to do this, that's great, and then you just do whatever you want. It's setting yourself rules. So it's imposing upon yourself a kind of law. And I think, whenever I've gotten really healthy, it's because I set myself a rule. I don't, I only eat, dessert once a week or something like that. I work out every day, those kinds of rules. And I think you can do that. I think you can do it if it's a rule. If it's like a matter of willpower, where you think every day, should I do this? Should I spend an hour writing? If you think that, then there's always going to be something that comes up. You've got other things to do than writing. But if you say to yourself, I'm going to sit down for 2 hours every single day, organize my thoughts, look over what I've written, and see if I can build on that.
Is there a penalty for not keeping the rules?
Yeah, the penalty is self-loathing.
Good, that works. That works really well. Right. I know all about that one. Interesting. So societies need rules, and humans need rules or laws as well in order to function, to fully function. I love that analogy.
But you have to put it on yourself. I mean, those are the ones that are free, right? Where you
can't just float around and wait for whatever trigger comes to kind of determine what choices you're going to make. We all know we're all doing it, and we all know it's just probably the worst thing we could do.
Yeah, I mean, when you set yourself a rule, it eventually becomes a habit. Mm-hmm. But habits aren't invariable. There are always going to be things that come up that might disrupt a habit. So when the disruption comes up, you have to remind yourself, this is my rule. You've got to become kind of inflexible about yourself. on those things, and you don't have to do it about everything. You just say, we all probably have the rule that we brush our teeth every day, brush our teeth every morning and every night. And we'd probably feel really bad about ourselves and about the taste in our mouth if we don't do that. Those things are easy because we develop it pretty early on. But you can set yourself other kinds of rules. I mean, again, like if you want to learn a language, you got to practice it every day. If you want to play an instrument, you got to practice it every day. If you want to be fit, you got to work out, 5-6 days a week. It's just the way it is.
Would you say in structuring your laws, is it better to make yourself do things than saying my law is to avoid things? Which would you choose?
I think it should be positive.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think of them as enabling constraints, right? So
I love that.
or something like laws of freedom, or something. That's the way Kant thinks about it. So if you think in terms of what must I do so that I can be the kind of person I want to be, those are the kinds of, but if you think in terms of what must I not do, I don't know
That's
exactly.
going to set up something inside it. Like there's a resistance to it.
There is a resistance to that. Yeah. I think the positive side is, I do my kettlebells every day because I feel damn good about, being a kettlebell ready dude. I don't know.
No, that's actually the perfect way to close.
Yeah.
Nate, thanks for being someone that says the word incalculable. There was another word you said that I just thought,
no, inculcate.
Inculcate.
Yeah, that's probably true. I
couldn't even remember the word. So
I probably overused that word.
I'm a fan of that word. I'm a fan of you,
the
Lincoln.
three of us know what that word means, but in case somebody didn't know what it means, what does inculcate mean?
Just sort of to develop it within something, to impose it upon
yourself, to add it personally.
Yeah. So
a part of you.
A habit is to make it into part of who you are.
Oh my gosh, it's not just a podcast. It's a vocabulary lesson.
Not today. Not with Dr. Andersen. It's none of those things.
Friends.
Yeah.
It is. You're welcome. Nate, will you come back?
It's great to see you, Stin, and it's great to see you again, Lincoln.
Good to see you too.
Yeah.
Just for the people who have subjected themselves to watching this on YouTube, can I say that you're 6'9"?
I'm 6'9", yes.
He is. And he doesn't play basketball. Sometimes people get really annoyed with him at the airports when he says he does not play basketball.
They don't do that anymore. I think they realize,
at this age, if he hasn't chosen basketball.
I don't have to resent my youth anymore.
Yeah.
My husband's 6'7", and I'm, people that come up to him all the time. They're like, "Oh, dude, if I was 6'7", I'd be playing for the Blazers." What a waste. I'm 5'8". I could have been like.
Everyone has their story, and you know what? It's kind of beautiful because everyone's kind of trying to find a way to connect. I think it's lovely, and maybe I'm just nostalgic because I miss people coming up to me in any context because nobody does.
Nobody does anymore. Yeah.
Can that be a future podcast?
No,
of turning 50 and not being on anyone's radar anymore. It's not just
being invisible, except for Nate, who's 6'9".
Right.
Yeah.
You still get seen when you're a tall man.
Yeah, you still get seen.
And you still kind of get seen when you're a tall girl, because I'm a 6-footer, and that's tall for a girl. We're tall people. All right. Hey, Nate, thanks for being on. Gosh, I kind of want you on every time. How fun would that be? We would all be much more interesting and think more heady thoughts with you around.
Are you in Florida?
I'm in Florida, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Oregon, Florida, Washington, D.C. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to hang up because Zoom keeps coming to me saying you're done. Hey, Nate, thank you.
Okay.
We're going to put a link to your Instagram so that everyone can follow you and bother you. You're welcome.
All right, take care. We'll see you.
Thanks so much.
Bye. Thanks, Nate.